G'day and welcome to the Runners. I'm Execute. I'm joined today by my partner in crime, Algared. How you doing, buddy? Good.
Fairly well. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to the news.
Right, so we wanted to do...
I always feel like I'm doing the news presentation when I'm doing these. Sorry.
All right, so we wanted to do a medium ship comparison today, and we're going to go over the ships, and obviously we wanted to do some of the corrections I got wrong in the last video. So we're going to go over those and basically go through this entire lineup of kind of medium ships and show why some of the comparisons some people are making are wrong, and some of the things that we've kind of realized and we want to point out to you. And I think I'll start with what we found in our tests in flying these ships in game, of the ones we're able to fly, obviously. But one thing that I think is like the really big highlight, and I'm going to start with it straight off the bat, Algared, is that there is no real base variant to the Zeus, right? And so you've got the Spirit, C1, the Cutlass, and the Freelancer, right? They are all kind of base variants. As soon as you go over to the Zeus, it's actually an Explorer variant, and so the only one you can really safely compare it with is the Der, right? And I think you'll agree with me, Algared, that's kind of reflected in the price, right? So you've got the Clipper and the ES at 150 and the MR at 190. Why is there not a kind of base entry level price? And I think that's when you kind of look at it like that, it does make it unfair, the comparison of some content creators have been making, that this ship here is dead on arrival.
Yeah. I tend not to think any of them are dead on arrival. I know we've done a video where we said it was a Cutlass killer.
Yep.
And that was just, I know, it was clickbait. Yes, yes, we know.
Yeah.
But there's no ship that's dead on arrival. They all have their place. And I think you're right. We were talking before the stream, and we were talking about that whole, you were saying there's no base variant for the Zeus, and I was saying, well, the ES is the base variant. But the second you look at what it is and what its role is, you actually have to compare it to the Door.
Yeah.
And that means it doesn't fit into that same role as just the C1, the Cutlass Black, or the standard Freelancer.
And again, the price, I think even CIG have kind of tipped the hat a little bit there, because it's exactly the same price as the Clipper, which means it's another variant price. So even if you look at these three base variants, though, there's kind of like what Algared always says. To give an example, they have their kind of nuances. So Algared always and I always say, like, the Cutlass series or Drake is upgunned and under armored, and you can do that with these as well. So it looks like the Crusader is going into speed or running away, much like the Mercury Star Runner, its bigger brother, you know. So this thing is really fast and accelerates really quickly. But then there's other things, like it doesn't handle well really close to the ground. Like I do a lot more damage to this ship when I'm close to the ground, and people might say, well, that's a skill issue and you're really bad at flying, but it shows that it's not good for tight spaces. It's also clearly bigger than all the other variants, so therefore it's going to take hits a lot worse, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, go ahead.
When we were looking at the Q&A, one of the things that Q&A said, hey, look, the Spirit is, compared to the Cutter and the Freelancer, seems sluggish. And it was, oh, no. The answer was, no, it's supposed to be, it's like its other ships, it's faster. Wow. And that just makes us scratch our head, because when we're flying it, yes, it's faster, it gets its SCM speed quicker, so it's running away, but in terms of maneuverability, it didn't feel as agile as the Cutlass, and possibly was a little bit more agile than, or as agile as a Freelancer. As I said, I don't fly the Freelancers anymore. I just don't find them nice to fly.
So if you are flying this close to the ground, obviously the wings point down, where if you're flying, say, something like the Cutlass, it doesn't have the same problem, right? So this, just in a tight space or close to the ground, it's like flying a pancake. It's big and, covers a large area, as opposed to the others where they're more tube-like, right? So again, the hallmark of this is speed. Obviously, the hallmark of the Cutlass is guns. The hallmark of the Freelancer and Zeus. Now, this is where we get into a bit of contention, because we're not quite sure, because again, there's some components that are a little bit different, but it's either one of two. It's either one of two things. The Freelancer is the all-rounder, and everything else is pulled off to a different area, or the Freelancer is the shield tank, and the Zeus is the armored tank. And that's kind of looks like where the Zeus is falling, because again of the extra armor.
It goes into that whole idea of scissors, paper, rock.
Yeah.
So the speed versus guns versus armor. And so
Yep.
one's got staying power, one's got killing power, one's got running power.
Yep.
If it runs away, you can't catch me, you can't shoot me.
Mm.
If I've got lots of guns, I'm going to do lots of damage to you, but I'm going to not be able to absorb it as well. I've got lots of I can absorb damage, but I don't dish out as well.
Yeah.
And what we're not 100% certain on at the moment, but we do think this could be the case, and we'll go through the reason why that in a minute. The Freelancer could be just the middle of a road for all of the ships. So we end up with a runner, a damage dealer, a tank, and the middle of the road. Or we could end up with two tanky ones.
More like a square rather than the one in the middle and a pyramid. Yeah.
When we look at the Zeus just in its geometry does look like it's more armored than all the others. It looks like it's got plating all over the place. Does it have that? Don't know.
But it does lead into the other variants too. So we'll talk about that in a bit. I think there was something I wanted to say about this.
When we look at
go ahead.
When we look at the you made me lose my train of thought.
Sorry, you made me lose mine.
But when we look at the
well, we'll go. If it comes back to you, it's fine.
Come back to me.
So we'll go into the variants now, right? So what I was going to say is you can actually see how that base stat actually carries into other variants, right?
Yep.
So for example, the E1, obviously it wants to run away from things. The A1 obviously wants to go past really quickly and drop bombs off, right? So you can actually carry that through. But there are ones that also flip its whole dynamic on its head. To give you a really good example of what I'm talking about, where we're talking about with the armor on the Zeus, is the bounty hunters. So let's have a look at the two bounty hunters. We've got the blue over here and the marky mark, because it's the mark, and it's called the MR stars for mark. So I'm calling it the marky mark, right? So the marky mark basically has the extra armor and moves slower. Right? Oh, that was what I want to talk about, was thrusters. I've remembered it now. So again, if you look at the Matrix of Lies, based on thrusters, this guy should fly the worst. Right? That was what I was trying to remember. And so again, that covers over to these, and this will carry into the example that I was going to give between the blue and the marky mark, right? And so it was the one you gave, Algared, earlier. So essentially, this one flies faster, but it's only got one gunner. This guy slower, has armor, but it's got two turrets, so it's able to defend itself more. So it's almost like the castle versus the archer in a type of way. Yep. And I think that's a really good example.
My concern with those two is, as I was saying, as we were discussing it earlier, is the Zeus may have to grow just because it's got so much. It feels like it's got so many components in it. It's got the dampener, it's got the EPM, it's got the cargo, the large cargo area, it's got the area for the prisoners, it's got the bed. It just seems to have. It's got the armory, it's got the suit lockers, it just seems to have everything that you want.
And
whereas Cutlass Blue seems to be lacking a lot of that. It's got lots of cells, but it lacks a lot of the other support.
Well, it's why you and I think the marky mark is better. So there was a certain content creator that says the blue is better. Now, his reasoning for why the blue was better is that the pilot has more control with guns, right? But anyone that's used a turret before, the turret can shoot in multiple directions at the same time. So only having one other turret on here, right? And if there's any repairs or anything, that guy's got to get off the turret. Right, where this person, they have an extra person in this one, and again, if everything's running fine in both ships, this has extra armor and extra guns. So again, if these two are in a fight, it would be the Cutty Blue that's running away, not this thing. In my personal opinion, with all the extra features you mentioned and the extra guns, this is clearly the winner. I don't think having all the pilots' guns makes that ship better.
No, I think the only real consideration you make when you're looking at the Zeus versus the blue is price point.
That too. It's 15.
That's really the difference you got to look at. And the Zeus is.
It's only $15. That's the other part. So you get so much more extra features for your $15.
But what I do recall, I was going to say, which it's come back to me.
Cool.
Is when you look at the Zeus and the Cutlass, the Zeus currently has. It's listed as having four shields. The Freelancer has 2. The others have 1. We also know that the Zeus's are in that kind of new metric, which makes it a bit hard to work things out. But the fact that the Freelancer has extra shields kind of lends it into that idea of it being more of that tanky type of ship, and which makes us wonder whether there's a shield tank, armor tank, or still a middle of a road. And I don't know the answer, but that's where we're leaning and thinking. So
that is an important one that I forgot as well. So yeah, good for that. All right, Algared, so give me a comparison between the Zeus Clipper and the Freelancer Max. Which one do you want to start with?
Go the Max.
Right.
The Max, I believe, is 122, 120 SCM of cargo.
Yep.
I can't remember the exact number.
120.
The beauty of the Max is that when it's fully laden, you can walk down the sides and you can still access your component access. It is a big ship. It flies fast, but boy, is it sluggish.
So
its roll is slow.
It rolls slow, but it's faster in a straight line because of the extra engines. So yeah.
With the Zeus, the Zeus Clipper,
extra armor.
Has extra armor, so it's going to be a bit. I would expect, based on that, if that is armor plating we're seeing, that it's going to be a more sluggish ship because it's heavier because of that. It's got extra cargo, which is going to make it heavier than the Max. So I expect that it's going to have that same flight model of being fast, but being sluggish. The big disadvantage this has over the Max, though, is from the Q&A. RSI have taken the view that carrying extra cargo is worth the risk of not being able to access your components. And so if they get damaged and you're fully loaded, you better hope you can survive without that component, because you're not going to be able to get it, or you've got to eject your cargo to be able to get to it. And that's I've got to say, I don't know whether that is worth the risk.
And the tractor beam. I think that's the only other thing I would add.
And it does have a tractor beam as well.
So again, even with these two variants, you're getting a speed one and a defensive one. That's essentially what these two are. So yeah.
And to tie back into the idea of there not being a base variant of the Zeus, the tractor beam also then ties you down into the cutter, which has a tractor beam. Oh, it's a Cutlass, which has a tractor beam. And so you even see there's that downward cross to the cutter, which is almost the equivalent of the Cutlass, which is the equivalent of that. Damn, CIG, we're gonna putting so many cutter names in there.
We're gonna need a cutter count by the end of this, I think. But yeah, all right. So yeah, and the Spirits has got the tractor beam as well. So yeah, you can see they do steal things across the line, as Algared's saying. So again, let's have a look at another one. So we got the Freelancer Dur and the Zeus. Now this is a harder one to compare because we don't know how scanners are kind of going to work out at the moment, because even in game right now, people are noticing some ships with scanners are being able to detect some things and others are not. For example, we're hearing reports today of people are finding caves underground with scanners, but other ships that you would think cannot find them, right? So again, that's only just coming out today as we record this, so that may come out down the future, that there are different levels and different types of scanners. The way these two ships travel, this one has extra fuel tanks, so does this one. But this one's got fuel scoops, this one does not. This one's got extra shields, it appears like, this does not. So again, those two in the same vein, but different ways that they go about it. So one might be long range, one might be short range. Again, we have to kind of wait and see what the Zeus is like when it drops. So here's another one, Algared. Go ahead.
The biggest difference for me with the Zeus and the Dur is the fact that the Dur has a medium jump point engine.
Yep.
Whereas the Zeus is listed as having a small.
Yep.
Now that's going on the Matrix Allies. It may change, but that's all we've got to go with at the moment.
So again, one's probably exploring in system, one going through the jump gates or whatever like that. So again, we'll see how that pops out in the interest of time. Two kind of combat ones here. So we've got the Mist that's all about the missiles, and it's got the extra person that's really required in the Freelancer to do the reloading, and the same kind of thing in the Spirit with the terminal, but you know, gravity dumb bombs versus missiles. So two different approaches to advanced there. Yep. Algared, then we've got two outliers. So tell me, which one you want to talk about? You got the E1 and you got the Cutlass. Which one do you want to go first?
I'll go
Red. Cutlass Red.
Cutlass Red.
Yep.
So Cutlass Red is the outlier because at the moment it really is the only, medium.
Apollo.
You've got the Pisces. I always see the Apollo as being large.
It's actually a medium though, believe it or not.
It's hard to believe. I
Yep.
can't see it's going to remain as a medium, given
Well,
the stuff.
well, again, it's an outlier, isn't it? In the
Yep.
weird type of phrase. So again, it's actually going outside the variance into full condensed ships, and obviously because it's a variant, it's kind of losing things over the Apollo, and I
Yep.
find that really interesting.
If,
But again, above the Pisces, it's got some benefits. I'll let you talk about it. Go ahead.
I think if you look at the Apollo, if the Apollo is stays in that medium ship category, that is the one ship that I would say kills the red. You know, kills any of them. That because you've got so many medical options with the Apollo. The upside is that the Apollo costs so much more than the Cutlass, and then
I think speed will come into play. I think the Cutlass Red will be the zippy, get to the scene as soon as possible, and the Apollo is more like, yeah, I can move, but I don't really care how fast I move. Do you know what I mean? And this has obviously got more guns as well, so it can get itself in and out of trouble. So again, you can start to see the comparisons that they're both taking different approaches to the same problem.
And I think it really comes down to the Red is an ambulance rather than the Apollo being a clinic.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, the difference. You got to also look at those as well. So the only other ship that really does compare to the Red is the Pisces medical.
Yeah, and again though, like let's look at the Red again. This is one of the things that people don't take into a lot of account. This thing's got 4 beds. It's actually got room for a nurse and a doctor to operate in the back and life support for them and all that stuff. So this is kind of takes it into the freelancer territory because all of a sudden it's 4 people as well, right? So that's massive over the Pisces because the Moses has got 1 bed that you can't log out in, right? And this has got 2 beds and then 4 beds to actually log out in, which is quite big for a ship of this size. Again, only the Freelancer series can do that, right? All right, let's move on to the E1, the only kind of personal transport we got. I don't think it'll be the last. Again, it's business class. You know, you've probably got the first class. The closest comparison to this in first class at the moment would be the 400i, but I think at some point we're probably going to get a more general personal transport, a bit aka to the Genesis Starliner. So again, this is a hard one to touch at the moment because we don't have a direct comparison.
And I think the direct comparison we might find is in the Zeus because there was that unnamed Zeus for the ST.
That's a good point.
Showed up for a while as being a racer on the chart. That's got taken down very quickly. When we were doing our live stream, it was the picture of it was behind Execute's head. It did blow us away. It did surprise us a little as we started to look at it and go, oh, wow, that is actually a different ship. But one of the things we could see on it was skylights.
It also tips to the future as well, because we also saw the what appeared to be a large Fury that looks like around roughly a medium ship akin to the Zeus. That looks like another racing ship coming. So again, that Zeus ST may have a competitor in time, which makes a lot of sense. If we're seeing our first endurance racer, which is what a medium ship would need to be, with the extra people, the extra fuel, the weapons, and all that type of stuff. They're going to want to have other ships that do the same thing. Because if you put that in right now, it's got no competitor. Why would you want to race against the same ship? It's too bland.
You might recall that at some point when they were looking at the redesigning of the Connies and doing the components that rated for the type, initially the Connie Phoenix was going to be getting the competitive components, almost the racing components that put into it. I'm glad I think that got put to the board because they were high quality, but they had a short life. I don't think that was good for a high quality ship. But I think it does
in this case
into that idea of the luxury ships kind of having that kind of tie-over or crossover with racing. And so does that racing ship have some form of passenger or ability? Possibly. It did seem to have the skylights in it. Will we see that with the E1 having some form of that? A fast ship to get people to and from place? Maybe. So I think it certainly does say there are going to be more racing ships in that, or more of those passenger transport ships in that line. But
we'll have to wait and see on those, because
have to wait and see.
We just, again, too much to. It's all speculation in that regard. But again, I think the takeaway that I kind of want people to take away from this is that there is essentially base variants of the Spirit, Cutlass, and Freelancer. There really isn't one of the Zeus, so it's not fair to go Spirit, you're dead. because there is not a direct competitor, and hopefully down the line, maybe they do release another Zeus that is a base variant. I'm not saying they will, but I think that's also reflected in the pricing. So, yeah, again, I think the Zeus that is, or medium ship that's appropriate for you is the one that speaks to you. But for me, Algared, the takeaway with all these medium ships is they're an earning game.
Yeah. And as I said, as we were discussing, there's no real ship that kills the other. It really is. Look at the ships that look at what you want to do in game. Look at the ship that best does that for you in game, and that's the one for you.
And also,
one person it's going to be the cutter, one person the cutlass, one person it's going to be the A1, one person it's going to be, they're all the same.
But again, we've got the in-game versus out-of-game pricing, and that's going to really start to show the reflection of these ships. And right now, again, like I said with the Zeus, $2 at $150, it kind of shows you there's no base variant. It's an unprecedented thing. We've never seen. Like, usually they come out and they're all segmented apart. It's clearly showing that there are two variants, not a base.
And the key reason we take that view of buy big, earn down is when you look at the price of the ships in game. Those bigger ships, exorbitant price compared to the others, whereas the price per UE dollar is the dollar price per that is huge in UE dollars. Whereas the smaller ships like these, it's like $1 is 5 UEE or 10 UEE or 100 UEE, whereas the others like thousands. And it's that type of comparison that we're always looking at. Is there a right or wrong? No. If you're trying to stretch a dollar, go big, earn down. So
let us know in the comments below your thoughts about what we've kind of analysed there, and basically, what variants would interest you, because I really think it's a big takeaway that there's no base, and it really, the C1's not dead, because you've got to look at prices yet, and we just don't know the prices of the Zeus in game. So it's just, again, we don't even know the price of the C1 in game, because it's not in game yet, right? So 12 months from now, we may come back and look at this all again, and we may be wrong, we may be right, but it's exciting to see that expanding of the lineup. So what would you like to hear from people below in the comments, Algared?
Yeah, what do you want to see in medium ships? Until recently, we only had the cutlasses and the freelancers. Now we've got more.
Doubled, hasn't it, essentially?
It's almost basically doubled. What more do you want to see? What other types of medium ships do we need?
Yeah, I can't agree more. And there's more ships that we could have put in there. Like, we could have put moles in there and Vulcans and some of the profession starters, much like the Apollo. We probably could have put the Apollo in there because of the red. But that's just going to get bigger and bigger over time. Knowing that how big the small ships are, like in real life, there are lots of small vehicles, and as you go up, that they become less and less and more niche and niche. So the medium lineup really is at a weak point. It needs a lot more ships compared to even the large, as an example. So yeah, look forward to seeing that.
Indeed.
All right, with that then, don't forget to like and subscribe and ring that notification bell. And thank you to the people in the comment, the credits at the end of the video that went the extra mile on Patreon.
Indeed.
Right, he's been Algared.
He's been Execute, and we're out of here.
Catch you in the next one.